Okay, getting done. Has 70. 50% of these are technically for science. And, oh, yeah. Something happened. Yeah, that's a jammed line. There. Did something happen over here, though? Was that just some biters attacking, then? Yeah. Uh... That's what it was. Like... As for everything else, I don't really care. Hey, there's some Volk science, but that should be stored pretty tight. That's going to have to process up and through before it goes. And then once it goes, yeah, I might as well as burn off the old spoiled stuff. But it's running again. Okay, that's good. And yet one more. For random stuff. And to get my inventory clear. And then maybe I'll just retire to setting up trains for this thing. Be a good life. And then give myself some production problems, because, yeah, these things can just slam. Just have these randomly grab stuff and drop it through, with the fallback being it's a straight belt. That'd work. I'm sure it will work. Either that or just use filters and spin it around in a circle. God, that is hilarious. And the steam turbines are like, what? There's a period of power draw here that we supplement. Alright, so that's all a happening deal. I do want this to make more things, but... Ooh, that's not getting steel. That needs to be fixed. Alright. That's plugged in, and that'll start regularly building. And then... this is piling stuff up, so... yeah, I can kind of, sort of... get that running. And then this steel building can be putting its load in here. Then make a variation of that concrete line that looks really nice. Erase that though, so if I ever... if I ever need... how do I put it? If I ever need this for overhead rails, that's what the words I'm looking for, I've got it. And actually, that might be the next big thing in science to implement. On Fulgora is rails and overhead rail support. And beside that, use the Spidertron to go and finish implementing the assembly line. And maybe have that do a small belt. Well, or one more train to knock this island out. And just have it be all for power then. I still have this area where I can plug wires into things and do mad science. Oh boy! Are you excited? I'm excited. Wires and mad science, that's what everybody wants. Okay. That needs its juice. Otherwise it will not go. Half of that a second is 1,800 of that per hour, which is... no. I want at least... double. Like that, yeah. And preferably more like that. With some power management going off so that it's not terrible, but... there's limits. Alright, and then it's going to be time for modules. Yay, modules. How do I do modules? But the first thing is, make sure one of these is checked for automatic requests from space, so that that can, in fact, happen. Then, look over at the various upcycles in turn for things like that. That's the modules line that I need to do. And then go, yeah, thanks. I really needed this. But, alright. The question is... I can do a run of blue chips, and then a run of modules that feed into modules 2, and then take some of those blue chips. So, boom, and then boom, and then oh. Speaking of power woes, let's just fix those really quick. So, like, modules 1, blue chips, that requires sulfur coming down from space, and does my buddy Mr. Spock IG have my back on that one? No, it does not. Oof. That's one where I have to fix that up really quick. And then, yeah, I'm going to put some carbon down on that planet to pull this line forward. Then change it over to advanced processing, because it should have enough, and it's not doing very much work, that this ends up being more important. And then that little double drop has to not happen that way. And it does have to be whitelisted, because there's a chance of a rock that does not work for me. If there's enough that it's past this post, eventually it'll go down that way, but not until it's done. And then, right, here's the part which demands my attention. Each on red, less than each on green. And then it's going to be 1k carbon. That's that check. $500 sulfur. Then unplug the ship so it can't read, and then switch this off from enable disable to set filters. So once it hits an upper threshold on either of these subjects, it quits. Works the same down here. Multi-role ships. Oh boy. And that's gonna save me a ton of water when I go to do sulfuric acid here. All the weird stuff I can do. But then, yeah, have a optional sulfuric acid line, which is just like going off. And looks over at this iron and goes, neat. Yet one more way we can get rid of garbage. And then stop. Take a deep, deep breath. And save my game is going to be the smart play. And see where I'm at. Time-wise. Because 31. Okay. Confirm. After a little break. I'm at 64 hours, 36 minutes. Before I had gone this, I had gone to 32. But I can go back and say, when did I probably win on Bulgora? And I believe, if my recollection is correct, it was about 65, 66 hours. At this 32 mark. So I'm in a similar place. I was actually on a smaller island, which I felt sped me up. There are some details which will take another hour to close, but at this point, this is where I officially say coffee's in integration time. Integration time is a really, really scary time for coffee, because for the next 15 hours, I have to get my act together and implement a whole bunch of little technologies and perform a major combat action, preferably within the next 10 hours of game time. I start up a ship design, which I have not yet completed. So I'm really scared about that, right? So, yes. Now it's the fear. And now it's the now it's time to be scared, because once you start to engage with quality, you can go off the deep end for up to 50 hours on a single project really easy. And particularly if you don't have all of the logistics upgrades in the game. So trying to do Fulgora without foundation and running out of space for belts and then getting upset is something where I've lost 50 hours to that. And like looking for alternatives for trains and then realizing like, no, you just need to have like a space platform worth of foundation showing up. And it's stuff where it's like, in another 50 hours, if you make a correct decision, it'd be really great, but it's also super viable for somebody to completely ignore that, take on a challenge which is more difficult than it needs to be, because they just go, well, I can use modules 2 all the time at Legendary, or I can just skip Prometheum research at normal quality. There's a ton of ways to do things where it's like, does it kill you? No. Does it have tremendous impacts on how much you enjoy this? See my furnace stacks back on Novice, where, man, when I do the post-op for this, somebody's going to take a look at some numbers, and depending on how this goes in the next 30 hours, just be amazed at how rough this can get if my memory's anywhere close to accurate. Like, that's a thing where I'm like, I'll be able to point at a game and be like, no, there's things that happen good and things that happen bad between all three of these games. But, like, look at this number and just be amazed. And it's not your normal skill issue. So, some thoughts of things that are coming, but that's still, I want to say 30 hours off, unless I get a major speed up. But yeah, part of the fun of this is actually to do multiple games early on and be like, ooh, what did I miss? Being in a rush. But at 100 hours plus editing time and mishaps, it becomes really interesting to show people that experience, because it's like, people can tell when I'm not enjoying myself. People can tell when I am enjoying myself, but I think it's a little harder for people to see when I'm legitimately weirded out by something and I'm not just being a crank. Because, yeah, subject has been weird enough that I'm willing to put this much energy into it. Alright, that's just some thoughts before I continue on. Start recording. Alright. So, probably my last batch of recording for the day. Now I have to do things like start setting alarms and timers so I can split my time between places. Because, yeah, it's just not going to be worth it to put it all into a huge pile of chips. I'll have to furbish and furnish that. But then, yeah, what I'm gonna do is gonna kind of change the nature of the game here. Doesn't take a lot to do that, believe it or not. Okay, I've got that, and I also have to have it requested. Sulfur from space. Okay. Then... yeah, I'm going to put stone in there. Just have that fall onto the assembly line, and that's actually a good opportunity to have it do stone, steel, and sticks. But that side jams, so... yeah, but I just put that down here. There we go. So yeah, now I can make rails. How do you know success is happening? Well, you can hear it. Okay, first 125 of that. I get the feeling I'm gonna want to check this one. So, I'm gonna pin that. And look at its import-export products.